Okay, Kierkegaard, Works of Love, Part 1. Good. All right, so before we get into text, I want to get into some of your really good questions. Some of you have really interesting points that I want to get to. Yeah, a lot of you were stumbling on the notion of Christian love. You're like, well, why is he talking all the time about Christianity? How offensive. Like, I'm not a Christian. Why should I read this book, right? Okay, so I don't know if I talked about it in the introductory lecture, but I'll go over what I think I said, right? So remember, Kierkegaard was not a Christian before he wrote this book, right? He was a man of the world. Kierkegaard he was in fact a player, if you want to know. I mean, because if you look at his earlier works, you see that. So he was really a man of the world, really very worldly, right? In that sense. He stumbled on Christianity at a time where he had given up on love, right? He really had become very cynical. This is why, by the way, there's so many passages about being deceived into not loving. I don't know if you got this, but when he talks about how many of us choose not to love, but we are being, in fact, deceived into missing out, into missing out on something very important, right? So he was one of those people, right? He was one of those people who believe there is no love and I give up and I'm done with it, right? And so later in his life, after his breakup, right, after he became very cynical and worldly and kind of a player, right? I think I mentioned that in the introduction. He wrote he wrote a player's playbook. I don't know if right, basically the Journal of the Seducer, right? That's a player's play. I mean, you read that book and you want to be a player, you will succeed. I read that book. I was just amazed at how good he was at deciphering the psychology of the woman and how to get her, right? Hooked and then dump her, right? So very, kind of very cynical, worldly approach to love. And then he stumbles on Christianity. And it's not that he became a Christian, right? It's that he became so amazed at the teachings of Jesus on love that for him it was an epiphany, right? He realized there's something very profound there. I'm not even considering myself a Christian, but I am considering myself from now on a disciple, right, of this man, because his teachings are so profound and they are so meaningful. So this book is not written for Christians, written for the world. It's a kind of exploration or deepening or really going. He's kind of really, it's a reflection on the teachings of Jesus, which were very short, right? Jesus just said a few parables, a few words here and there. That's it. That's all we have, right? So he's kind of like deepening, developing, exploring the depths of that teaching, and really telling us, all of us in a way, can learn from these teachings, right? These teachings for Kierkegaard are meant to be universal. Anybody, whether you're a Jew or Muslim or Buddhist, you can actually benefit from these teachings, right? Just like he did, without ever considering himself a Christian, right? So when he's talking about Christian love, he's simply meaning the love as it was taught by Jesus, right? Those teachings. Doesn't mean you have to be a Christian, doesn't mean you have to belong to a church or even believe in Jesus or even believe in God. This is a teaching about how to love. He's looking at the practical teachings of Jesus. He's not doing theology. He's saying, here this man was onto something. He understood something profound about love, and I'm going to bring this to the world by writing, kind of exploring, expounding on it, right? So Christian love simply means that love that he stumbled on, the way that it was taught and modeled, right, by Jesus. And then he compares it to the poet's love. Anybody figure out what is the poet's love? He has these two loves, right? Christian love, poet's love. The poet. Who is the poet? Poet is popular culture. When you listen to a song, watch a movie, you get a certain vision of love, right? Which for Kierkegaard misses the point completely, right? Any song, any movie out there about love, missing the point, right? So he's saying all these kind of, sugary songs about, oh my God, I'm gonna die. Like if you listen to bachata, right? It's very tragic, if you understand it. For me, it just sounds beautiful, like the Garden of Eden, but actually it's about a guy cutting his hands, because he lost it, right? Because he's lost his beloved. It's that especially that music. We have less of it in the English-speaking world, right? But this is kind of, or maybe what's her name? That singer always singing about breakups. What's her name? Tall, blonde. Who? Taylor Swift. Yes, that's Likewise, right? Although Taylor Swift's pretty, she has some good psychological insights, right? So in general, right, anytime it's talking about just sugary type of love, like, oh, I'm gonna die for you, that's the poet's love, right? It's not the real love. Anytime it's very like, oh, you're my life, you're my world, I will die without you. He's like, come on now, wake up, right? So that's the two kinds of love, and he's of course trying to move us away from the poet's love, from this kind of sugary, superficial love, just based on feelings and immediate, right? This is the first 3 days of your love affair, right? Usually like that, and then it goes, south. So that's the idea. And so he's trying to teach us another way of loving, which isn't the way that the culture has been teaching us. This is basically what he's doing, trying to move us away from the culture, the way that our popular culture sees love, into something much deeper. Does this help a little bit with the Christian reference, right? I mean, that's it. He's all he's doing is quoting one word, couple words by Jesus, and then he just kind of develops that. Now, a lot of you are having trouble reading, because some of you say it's very dense, very convoluted, right? Welcome to literature, right? This is not Facebook or Twitter, right? It's normal. You're not used to this, right? We're used to reading Yahoo News or whatever, Facebook, a couple, little frames, and then Twitter, 3 lines. The brain is not structured anymore in the 21st century to read literature. So this is good for you. I'm so happy you're struggling with it. It's making your brain, it's expanding your brain, right? So, yeah. So he is writing. I mean, it's beautiful writing once you really get used to it. And the reason he's going so much into the details is that he's trying to develop a concept which is just caught in a kernel, right? When Jesus teaches, it's just a kernel. It's very abrupt, it's very succinct. So he's kind of trying to make the thing blossom and see all the stem, the leaves, all the ramifications of what Jesus was saying. He's trying to really develop it. You see what I'm saying? It's like, okay, how many of you are musicians? Nobody. All right. So what do your parents do with you people? So I want you to listen tonight to a song called, it's a classical piece called La Folia, L-A, La Folia, F-O-L-I-A, means the craziness in, I guess, Italian. Now, it's the piece is by Corelli, C-O-R-E-L-L-I. I want you to understand this piece because this is how Kierkegaard writes. In this piece, there is a first melody, one very simple melody, and then there are variations on that melody. So you will hear one melody at the beginning, very beautiful, and then there are like at least 10 variations of that melody. Right? For example, the melody is dun da 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 dum da dum da. It's a little different. And then it's like da 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 da. Right? He's kind of it's variations on a theme. Right? This is a musical style to create variations on a theme. This is what Kierkegaard is doing. Theme, Jesus' teachings. Whole chapter, variations. Okay, so you can understand how he is writing. It's like a musical composition, right? Everybody ready to listen to Corelli tonight? Right? This is important element of culture. Italian, classical. 16th, 17th, 18th? I'm not sure which century. Somewhere before the 18th. Okay. All right, back to Kierkegaard. Okay, so let's get into the text. I'm getting hot. Okay. All right. 2 things I'm going to talk about today. The fruit of love, which all of you were complaining about, why he's talking about fruit so much. And now you will know. Okay. And the source of love. These are the 2 themes we're going to talk about today. All right. Okay. First thing we learned. First thing we have, so let's go read the quote, right? He's going to start with a very succinct, very abrupt teaching by Jesus, right? Which Jesus doesn't go into the details. This is on page 23. This is a quote by Jesus, right? For each tree, everybody there? Wave at me if you're there. Okay. For each tree is known by its own fruit. Figs are not gathered from thorns, nor are grapes picked from a bramble bush, right? Basically here, I mean, there's so much to say about this particular quote, but I'm going to focus on the notion that for Kierkegaard, we are like a tree. The lover that we are, right, as we learn to become lovers, right, we are like a tree. And so it's very important to understand this tree metaphor, because today we're going to look at two aspects of the tree, the fruit and the roots. We're going to talk about the roots also today when we talk about the source of love. Okay. First thing we learn about a tree. When is the tree fully tree? What's the ultimate accomplishment of the tree? When is the tree really fully itself? When it does what? Fruit. Okay, as long as the tree is just a trunk, okay, it's not bad. Branches is fine, leaves is okay, but the fruit is ultimately the tree being fully itself, right? So here he's saying, as lovers, we are like a tree, meaning we are fully ourselves once we bear fruit, right? The way that we really blossom as human beings is not so much to be loved, but to love. That's when we really reach our climactic blossoming, right? Most of us, we think, oh, I'm going to make it in my life, right? I'm going to reach the climax of my life when I finally find a partner, and then we get married, and then we have some stability. That's when I'll be fully myself. He's saying, no, you'll be fully yourself when you love, not when you are loved. And in our society, we tend to think, once you find a partner, good, I have identity. Phew, okay, I don't look so stupid anymore. I can go to family gatherings, right, and not look like an idiot, right? So we feel like the ultimate accomplishment in love is to have somebody, is to be loved. Kierkegaard is flipping it. He's saying, no, the ultimate accomplishment is the ability to love, to bear fruit, to give the love rather than to receive the love, right? To remember, Rumi said that, right? If you're only thinking about receiving love, you're still a kid. You're still a child longing for the parental love, right? You're still looking for, right, sugar daddy, sugar mommy, whatever, right? So now you need to grow up and realize that to really become a mature lover, you are not thinking of receiving anymore. You are thinking of giving. In fact, I tell this is especially interesting when it comes to marriage, right? When we're not ready for marriage, what does it mean? And what does it mean to be ready for marriage? It's very simple, or for, some kind of deep commitment, right? Most of the time, we're not ready for a deep commitment when we're still thinking, I need to get this and this and this, and I can't find anyone who has this and this and this. So you're thinking about finding the perfect person. Not ready for marriage, right? As long as you're thinking, I need to find the perfect person, you're not ready. As soon as you flip inside and realize, I'm tired of just being by myself, I want to offer myself to someone. At that moment, when you have made the shift from I need to get to I need to give, now you're ready, right? And many of us who are not ready, it's simply we have not been able to make this psychological shift from I long to receive to I long to give, right? Both are longings, right? Of course, we long to receive, but the shift to really longing to give is the shift from childhood to maturity, right? And this is a shift that many of us don't make soon enough, I guess, right? This is why so many people are not ready for marriage, because they have not made this internal shift, right? The moment you want to offer yourself, that's the moment you're ready. And many people, they're like, I don't know. I was talking to a student recently, and he was telling me, I have trouble, committing, because every woman I meet, there's always something missing, right? So I'm like, yo, you're still, you're still over here on the receiving end. You're never going to be committed in that way. The moment you get to the point in your life where you're so sick and tired of yourself, right? And you're choking on your own abundance, right? And you want to give, doesn't matter who. I mean, matters a little, but not so much anymore. Doesn't matter she's missing something, because you are in it for the gift, not for the receiving, right? So that's really an important, you need to, in a way, know yourself, right? Where are you at? Neither one is bad or good, right? It is important to receive before you can give, obviously. So if you're still needing to receive, don't commit to anything serious. You're not ready, right? Only when you've shifted to I'm ready now to give. I have received so much. I feel like I have so much to give. Now you're ready for something serious. Now you know, right? So that's the criteria. Okay, so the tree here, right? This is the idea that we are really ready for commitment when we are ready to give, not so much to receive anymore, when we are longing to give. Okay, so this is not enough, right? So he continues. Let's go to page where he talks about the fruit, the leaves, and so forth. We have to go over that terminology. So he says, at one point, he says, yeah, let's talk a little more about this giving, right? He's saying very often we think that the feeling is enough. Oh, I love this person, I passionately love them. And he's saying the feeling is not enough. Feeling, when you feel strongly about someone and you love them and you would even die for them, that's just the leaves, right? What you really need is for feelings to translate into actions, right? Are you loving or are you just in love, right? Of course, you need to start to be in love. He's not like Kant saying, screw pathological love, right? He's saying, no, no, no. Feelings are important, but feelings are not enough. These feelings must then develop you, must then somehow shape you and bring out of you actions of love. So this is actually really helpful because many of us sometimes are in relationships, or we are that person, where our partner tells us, but I really love you, I love you. And then they treat us like, not so good. And so we tend to doubt their love, right? Kierkegaard would say, no, it's sincere, but it's still a leaf, right? If we can see that, it's going to help, right? Because immediately when someone doesn't treat us so well, we're like, well, you don't love me, right? Clearly, it's not happening. And the person keeps on telling you, but I love you, and you don't believe them, right? What Kierkegaard would say is that, listen, that person does really love you. They're sincere, but their love is still on the level of the leaf. And you need a little more time for them to grow into fruit-giving tree, right? And you could be like that, right? You could be full of love and your actions suck, right? When it comes to, right? Some of us really have to work on our characters, right? Realizing that, okay, my love is true, but I need to really develop the ability to love in a way that translates into actions, into the tone of your voice, into what you tell them, into what you do with them, right, and so forth. So he talks about this, that the love is not enough. The love must form the heart. Go to page 29, last paragraph. He says that here. It's a very interesting quote here. It is said of certain plants, are you with me? Who's with me? Wave at me. Page 29, last paragraph. Okay, so he says this. It is said of certain plants that they must form hearts. The same must be said of a man's love. If it is really to bear fruit and consequently be recognizable by its fruit, it must form a heart. In other words, your feelings, your passionate feelings for that person must begin to shape your heart, must begin to make you into a better person. And by the way, usually it's the case. When we first fall in love, we are all patient with our siblings. We love our parents, even if they're crazy, right? It does kind of help us become better people, but he's saying, yes, use that energy, use that kind of, that fire to begin to mold your heart to become a better person, right? All love feeling is a very powerful incentive to become a better person. So he thinks it's very important, right, that your love not be just a leaf, but also a fruit, right? He says this here on page 29. You see that big first paragraph? Do you see the footnote 7? Okay, right before it. No, right there, right at the footnote 7. You should not be ashamed of your feelings, still less of honestly giving to each other his due. Nevertheless, this is the part you underline, one should not love in word and with devices of speech, and neither should one regard them as sure marks of love. On the contrary, by such fruits, and then he corrects himself, or by their being merely leaves, one should know that love has not had time for growth, right? So you can have strong, sincere feelings, and your partner can have strong, sincere feelings for you, but sometimes their love has not yet grown to the level of a fruit. And it's not that they're lying to you, it's just that they need to go through some more growth, right? Okay, now, what time is it? Okay, good. All right, so here we are, right? We've learned to be a tree, and now we want to bear fruit. And now first problem arrives. What if you're the only one bearing fruit? Happens, right? Other person is in some kind of a drought, right? They're not giving. They're going, it could be they're always like that, right? Some people are like that. Or they're going through a phase, right? Or they're going through some crisis, and you're giving, but they're not giving, right? Now what? And a lot of us, right, when we're not receiving love, we start to wither. It's true, right? When you're in a relationship where you're the only one giving and the other person is not giving, you become more and more drained, you become more and more tired. People start to comment on your appearance and why you're not wearing makeup anymore, and why is your hair in a ponytail, right? This is you withering, right? From this lack of love. You can tell, right? You can tell in the face. Right? Did you see Johnny Depp when he was going through, right? Did you see the way his face changed over the years after his marriage, right? To, what was her name? This woman that was abusing him. Uh, yeah. You don't believe it? You look skeptical. Right? The way Johnny Depp, right? You can see on his face all over that, how he's disintegrating from this relationship, right? So very often we're ready to give, we're mature, we've taken the class on love, and the beloved is still somewhere with the leaves, right? Not giving anything. So what happens then? This is a key question. This is where Kierkegaard is going to really be down to earth, right? He's going to say it's the only way you can bear fruit at all times, even if it doesn't rain. Does anybody know how a tree manages to bear fruit even if it doesn't rain? What's the secret of the tree? Tell us, Osorio. Exactly, the roots. If your roots are deep enough, you will connect to underground water and you won't need the rain anymore. This is such a profound secret, and we're going to talk about it next couple classes, right? Today and next time, about this notion of the hidden source of love, right? What Kierkegaard is saying, if it is true, it's a powerful, powerful teaching. It's really revolutionary, right? Because most of us, we survive the relationship only if there is rain. And when the rain stops, most of us cannot cope. We either wither or we leave. And your therapist will tell you to leave, right? Remember, therapist, like, what did she tell me? She was telling me, what are you getting out of this? I'm like, this is not the point. Like, this is not about getting, me with Kierkegaard in the back of my head, right? So she was really puzzled about this situation, right? It's like, this is not about, like, how is this serving you? It's not, right? So this is the idea. Very often, your therapist will tell you how is this serving you? What are you getting out of this person? And then they will encourage you, well, if you need to move on, you need to find something that serves you, as though love was there to serve you instead of you serving it, right? Where are we? I don't know. Okay, so that's the idea. So here we have a powerful teaching, which is, again, countercultural, right? Because culture is telling you, if you're not getting water, you should probably find a place with water, right? Kierkegaard is going to say, you do what you want. You leave, you stay. But if you want to stay, here's what I can tell you, right? Again, Kierkegaard is not telling us we have to stay. He's not telling us we have to go. Kierkegaard is saying, go if you want to. I don't care. I'm a worldly man. I've done my share, right? But he's saying, if you want to stay, let me reveal something to you that will be useful to you as you struggle to stay, right? And this thing he's revealing is this root system, this hidden source. And of course, we have to somehow know that this is true, what he's saying, right? For now, I'll just say it, and then we'll go into his argument, right? But for now, he's saying there is a secret source that we can tap into when we are in a drought. And if we are able to do this, we can love and flourish even in the biggest drought, right? The key as human beings, if we learn to tap into this source, we can flourish no matter what is happening outside. You lose your whole family, you lose your beloved, you lose your job, whatever you're losing, whatever is drying up on the outside, doesn't matter, because you have your roots in the ground and you're tapping into something deeper, which incidentally for Kierkegaard is within us, right? So basically he's saying all of us within, we have this secret source that we can tap into so that no matter what is going on the outside, I can be firm, I can be stable, and I can continue to bear fruit. This is incredible. Even in the most difficult, challenging relationship, you don't have to wither. You don't have to be drained. You don't have to die and curl up on the inside, right? You can continue to thrive and to bear fruit. So let's talk more about this source. Let's look at the quote on that. So this is page 26. All right. Okay, I'm reading on the second paragraph. From whence comes love? Are you there? Wave at me. Put your hand signal. Okay. So from where comes love? Where does love come from? That's what he's asking, right? Where does it have its origin and its source? So if we can find the source and plug into it, We don't need the lover, the beloved, to, do anything. We can just love, right? Whatever is going on. So he says this. Where's the place, its stronghold from which it proceeds? Certainly, he says this place is hidden. Now, I want to stop on that because that's very true. Most of us, we're in a relationship, it's going bad, we're drained, we're dying inside, right? Most of us, if you check, you can't find your source, right? It's like, okay, the professor is talking about a source. I don't feel anything. I just feel resentment. I just feel anger. I just feel tired, right? I don't feel no source, right? It's hidden. Kierkegaard is right. It's hidden, and it takes something. There is some shift you have to make to connect to it, and we'll talk about this shift, right? But for sure it's hidden, and you can write this down, that most of us, right, if I tell you about this source and you're kind of tapping into your heart, you're like, I don't see a source. I just see, darkness, tiredness, weariness, hopelessness, right? Anger, resentment, right? Often I don't see this thing, and I can't access it. Most of us are not even aware it's there, and if we start to become aware, we can't find it, right? It's funny because I'm teaching another class on happiness, and so we did an exercise where they had to meditate on the state of their heart, right? Kind of just like I played some nice music, and they were supposed to come out of the meditation, tell me what's in their heart. They couldn't connect. None of them were able to connect to their heart. They were like, I couldn't get there. I was caught in my thoughts. I was thinking of something else. There were like 10 people, not so much, 6 people in the class. They were not able to connect to their heart. We have lost the ability, right, to connect to our hearts and therefore to this source. So this is very important information, how to do it. So anyways, continuing. It's hidden or is in that which is hidden. And now he continues. There is a place in a human being's most inward depths. From this place proceeds the life of love, for from the heart proceeds life. So notice, right, he's talking about a dimension, which is not a material dimension. It's not a physical dimension. It's a metaphysical dimension, right? This is very powerful. He's saying that, yes, there is the material realm that we can draw nourishment from, but there is also a deeper realm, deeper than the physical, deeper than what is visible and what you can see and what you can know. This is a metaphysical realm, right? M-E-T-A, beyond the physical. Now, notice what he's doing, right? Most philosophers, they say, beyond the material, there is the metaphysical, right? And you need to rise above the material to connect to the metaphysical. Let's see, who said this? Plato, right? When we studied Plato, remember? What was the highest love for Plato? What's the best kind of love you can have when you love someone? The higher love. Pausanias, remember? What's the higher love? What's the lower love? Let's see if you remember. Yes.
Wasn't it in relation to lower love was when you look for the body?
Mm-hmm.
You know, for a woman, a child, is that whatever is for the body?
Yes.
If you go into an older man who's more knowledgeable, and more understanding, is more
exactly. Right? Higher love beyond the body, lower love stuck in the body, right? Higher love, you don't care about the body, you're loving the soul, something beyond the body. Lower love, you're just caught up in the lust for the body. Now, Kierkegaard is saying, no, the higher love is within the body. As you love someone in the material realm, right? You yourself, as a physical body, are the place where that deeper source is. So this is the difference between Kierkegaard and someone like Plato, right? They're saying the transcendent realm is not beyond the physical, is found in the physical, in me. As I relate to you here in this material realm, we can connect to this deeper realm, which is the realm of the metaphysical or the source of love. So this is just a interesting contrast with many philosophers who say, yeah, if you want to connect to the higher realm, you need to leave behind the body, the material, you need to leave behind lust and so forth. Kierkegaard is saying you can be in a big lustful relationship, right? And you still can connect in that way, right? Okay, so let's continue. So it's in the most inward depths, it's not somewhere else, it's within us, right? Continuing, from this place proceeds the life of love, etc. Now, let's go further. Page 27, second paragraph, he's continuing. The hidden life of love, are you there? Wave at me if you're there. I want to see something. Somebody react? Yes, thank you. The hidden life of love is in the most inward depths, unfathomable, and still has an unfathomable relationship with the whole of existence. Now, here's the line you underline. As the quiet lake is fed deep down by the flow of hidden springs which no eye sees, so a human being's love is grounded still more deeply in God's love, right? So he calls this God's love. But again, this is an experience that belongs to the human condition. So whether you believe in God or not, you can connect to this, right? He calls it God, and he later also calls it the eternal. In the next text we're going to read, we're going to talk about the eternal. The eternal is not the afterlife. Let's give you a heads up on that. When Kierkegaard talks about eternity or the eternal, it's not the afterlife, it's not paradise, it's that dimension, this deep source from which you can draw nourishment, strength, wisdom in your situation, right? Or which he calls God or the eternal. Doesn't matter if you believe in God or not, you have it, right? And you can tap into it. This is very important. So now, the million-dollar question, of course, if there is indeed such a source, right? How do we tap into it, right? Because that's the only way we'll know if what Kierkegaard is saying is true, by the way. He's not going to go on the board, give you a mathematical demonstration of why the source exists, right? He doesn't have a microscope to tell you, here it is, right? No. The only way we know that he's telling the truth is if we are able to tap into it and feel it, be like, oh my God, there is a source. Oh yes, this is wonderful, right? So this is typical of existentialist philosophy, right? The only way you know what they're saying is true, you got to experience it. Make sure you write this down because this is really important. Existentialist philosophy, like Kierkegaard, the only way you can prove or know that what they're saying is true is if you actually experience what they're talking about, is if you're, so the only way we'll ever know if what he's saying is true, that there is an inner source, right, that we can tap into in order to gain nourishment, strength, wisdom in the situation, right, in order to continue to blossom even though there is a drought. If what he's saying is true, the only way we can know is to find it, right? And so the million-dollar question is, how do we connect to this inner source, right? If we know this, we know everything. How do we connect to this inner source? Make sure you write this down. The million-dollar question. How can we connect to this? Because if we can connect to this, we can survive anything. We can continue to blossom. We can continue to love. Even if there is a drought, we can continue to thrive, right? So this is the million-dollar question. How do we connect to it? And the answer to this question, we will find out next week. So you're stuck now. You have to read the next text. And we're going to talk about the next text. Let me give you a heads up. In the next text, he's going to talk about connecting. And he's going to say, I want you to find it. I'm going to ask you, what is the key? He's going to say you have to position yourself a certain way. There's something you need to practice doing. It's a work, right? The whole title, Works of Love, right? There is a labor you have to do. There is a work you have to perform. And as you do this, you will connect. So my question that I'm going to ask you next week is, what is this work that one needs to do in order to be able to connect? That's what we're going to find out. What is the positioning we need to do? What is the attitude we need to have in order to begin connecting to this deeper source, right? So this is for next week. This is the sequel. Okay, questions? Yes.
So the part where he says God's love, so is that also within us? Is that what he's saying? That God's love is?
Yeah, he's saying is a source, right? We have like a spring, right? Poland Spring, which isn't, I bet there's no Poland Spring anywhere, right? Did you ever think about that? The water we drink, the Poland Spring water. Do you really think there's a spring? Anybody think they're lying? Right? They're just taking tap water, filtering it, and selling it at spring. Anyway, if there's really a spring, saying there's a spring within us, right? Which he calls God's love, but could be the eternal, could be whatever you want to call it. It's there. He says it's within us. And the key, though, we need to tap into it, and we don't know how. That's the problem. So the only way we'll know it's there is to learn to tap into it. If I tap into it, it's like, oh, there it is, right? Is the knowledge that Rumi was saying, intuitive. Wait, did we do this? No, we didn't. Sorry, this is the other class. It's different. It's a knowledge by experience, right? In that sense. Okay, any other questions before I dismiss you to go to read more Kierkegaard? Okay, good. All right, good. We'll stop the recording.